welcome to the Detroit Lions News Podcast, take two, because I originally started recording and then I realized I'm not using my mic. My mic's not lighting up, nothing's happening. So, take two. Boom. So, we are here. We are here. Um, this podcast is going to be a very informative podcast. I'm not going to yell at you. I'm not going to yell at you like some of these people will do. Like, we got to take this guy. And if we don't take this guy, Brad Holmes blows. Not going to do that because it's stupid. I mean, I think over the course of 4 drafts, Brad Holmes has done a pretty damn good job, and people can point at some, they can point at some fallacy. They could be like, "This guy drafted Broderick Martin." Well, he also drafted Derek Barnes, Malcolm Rodriguez, Amon-Ra St. Brown. You don't hit it 100%. Now, I do love this time of year for one reason and one reason only, and it's very simple. This time of year, it feels like, and maybe I'm being facetious by a little bit of a stretch of emotion, but doesn't it seem like the biggest idiots have the biggest voices? Like every year, I hear people repeat the same regurgitated takes that like a Mel Kiper has or a Todd McShay, and I love Bucky Brooks and what's the guy from NFL Network? God, I'm forgetting his name. God, oh my God, the guy from NFL Network, very smart guy, Daniel Jeremiah. That's who it is. And those are two of the guys I like. I also like on NFL Sirius XM Radio, Pat Kerwin and Jim Miller. But this time of year is a little bit nauseating at times because what happens at this time of year, and I know if you're a Lions fan or you're a football fan in general, this time of year, everyone regurgitates the same lines. Oh, he's good in coverage. Oh, he's a baller. Oh, he has this dog in him. Like you always hear these regurgitated takes, and usually it's by people that don't even watch college football, or they watch a little bit of it. I mean, if you're a normal everyday person, it's kind of hard to watch every college football game, especially when you have a college team yourself. And you can go back and watch those teams, obviously, but everyone has this big opinion, this grandiose opinion. And when we get to the NFL draft, everything seems like no one gets it right ever. Last year, there was like 15 straight offensive players taken before there was defensive players taken. The year prior, the Detroit Lions selected Jahmyr Gibbs 8th. Jahmyr Gibbs was mocked around in the 2nd round, and a guy, Brian Branch, was mocked in the 1st round. It was the ultimate, like, wow, like, what are we doing? Like, I remember the week of that draft. There were people talking about getting Brian Branch with the 1st pick. That was some people that were talking. I mean, obviously, we knew that they were a little bit out of touch, but Brian Branch was someone that they could potentially get with the 2nd pick of the 1st round. And Jack Campbell was a guy they thought they can get in the 2nd round with Jahmyr Gibbs. And it turned out the 2 first-round draft picks, Jahmyr Gibbs and Jack Campbell, who were projected to go in the 2nd round, went in the 1st round. And it just shows you that this thing has gotten silly. And I see all these content creators and these radio hosts, and everybody's just talking like out of their ass. Like, oh, I watched this guy. Oh, did you? Because what you said is not true. Now, I do like listening to Jim Miller and Pat Kerwin on Moving the Chains. I think they do a damn good job at, giving you the real deal. When they talk to Lane Kiffin, who has a couple of good prospects in this year's draft, I thought it was a very, very interesting interview from Friday. If you didn't get the chance to listen to it, it might be on like a YouTube or something like that. I have to go check, but it was a very good interview by both of them and getting a kind of inside look at those players like Nolan, the kid that is the defensive tackle, or Princely Amunyen or something like that. I can't pronounce that last name. It's insane, but he's a good pass rusher. I can tell you that. And they got that corner who's a damn good player. It just goes without saying, like Ole Miss has some pretty good players, and hearing Lane Kiffin talk about the players he had, and talking about what they're good at and all that jazz, it was a very interesting interview. But you get to this time of year, and it's just it's nauseating sometimes. I didn't want to do a podcast last week because I felt like a lot of people do podcasts just to hear himself talk. And I felt like there's really nothing I could say about the draft because I thought it was a little bit too early. I mean, obviously you can go into like positional values and all that jazz, but it's kind of hard to have positional values when I mean, I know what, you know, positions are huge in this draft, which positions are weak in this draft. I know that. I know the players, all that jazz, but when you're getting down to the brass tacks of this guy's a first rounder, this guy's a second rounder, this guy's going to be here, you have no idea. Just simply put, we have no idea. No one does. I mean, there's 32 NFL general managers, and half of them, or maybe 10 of them, have no effing clue what's going on. That's the reality of the draft. Like, I love these experts saying, oh, I would do this. They have a paid guy who is getting paid by the organization to draft said player and still can't draft that player. How many years has that gone on? A long time. So it's interesting about this time of year. And you know, when you read some of the things that have been happening with the Detroit Lions in terms of could there be a ski, could there the way that they're, they're holding visits. These are the players that they're holding visits from. So um they have Lanson from UC Davis. This is a Pride of Detroit article. Great, they do a great list of keeping track of the visits. It's a good way to look at some of them that you might have missed. Wide receiver Isaac Tisla of Arkansas. This could be defined as a local visit as well. Gray Zeeble, North Dakota State. Then Ed Shamar Stewart from Texas A&M. Josiah Stewart from Michigan, the edge rusher. Edge rusher Q Robinson from Alabama. Defensive tackle Tyleek Williams from Ohio State. Linebacker Chaz Chambliss from Georgia. Ruben Hypolite, Maryland. Maxwell Harrison, Kentucky, who that could also be defined as a local visit. And Jonas Sanker, Virginia, the safety. So those are the players that have visited the Detroit Lions. And, you know, what kind of stands off, it doesn't stand up to me, but, we talked about people that in the first kind of like little, uh, it, the first soliloquy that we had, um, how people just don't really know. This is one of the things I'm talking about with we really don't know. We really don't know. Like, what are the Detroit Lions going to run? And when I'm reading the tea leaves of players that they brought back with players that they have had on top 30 visits, it leads me to believe we are heading in one direction and one direction only. Listen to this. So, obviously the Lions, they they brought back Derek Barnes, they brought back Marcus Davenport, they brought back Ezekiel Turner, they brought back Roy Lopez, a guy who has played a lot of nose tackle. They brought back Levi Onwuzurike, who played a lot on the edge, especially at Washington in a 3-4. Al-Quadin Mohammed comes back. Miles Adams comes back. Grant Stewart, who played in a 3-4 last year, comes to Detroit. They have a lot of corners out there. And I mean, the players that they left, like, I mean, Jonah Williams to the Saints. I mean, okay, that's not a huge deal from any stretch of the imagination, but that's exactly what I'm looking at. And when I look at a guy like Shamar Stewart, who could potentially be a guy that the Detroit Lions could look at, or I look at a guy like Josiah Stewart, or I look at a guy like Q Robinson. Now, Q Robinson, I'll tell you this right now, he has a lot of he has another level that he can get to. There's no doubt about it. This Q Robinson kid, he's a freak, but he's raw. And he's a 3-4 guy. Now, I was reading today that Q Robinson potentially could be a day 2 pick. That would be very, very interesting. That'd be very, very shocking to me. But look, prepare to be shocked. Like I said earlier in the podcast, just about 7, 8 minutes ago, when you get to this time of year, you expect the unexpected because there's a lot of general managers in this league who have no clue what they're doing. There is a lot of experts that talk about football 24/7 who have absolutely no clue, and they love to just give you these takes that sound good for radio or TV or Twitter or X or Facebook, and they're not really great takes. Great takes. Now, I think when you look at the players that have interviewed the Detroit Lions, I like Gray Zeeble, the offensive lineman. He's probably going to be a guard in the NFL. I like Josiah Stewart. It depends on the defense that you run. I love Tyleek Williams. I love that one. Jonas Sanker. I watched a couple of Virginia games, and I'm telling you right now, I would not. If you were my worst enemy, I would never tell you go watch a Virginia Cavalier football game. What a joke that is. Virginia used to be a very, very high class football school. They used to have some good football teams. And for some reason or another, they're just horrible now. And I remember when they got Bronco Mendenhall from BYU. I don't know if you guys remember when they got Bronco Mendenhall. I thought they were going to be great. I thought they were going to be great, and they have turned out to be absolute ass. And they're not fun to watch. So I would skip the offense because the offense was horrible. Defense had a few key players, and I thought that was very interesting. But these top 30 visits, the players that they brought back, it makes me kind of wonder just a little bit of where the Detroit Lions are going to go with their top 30 draft visits. Now we know for a fact that Brad Holmes loves to draft some of those players that he has in his top 30 visits. And we're unclear of a guy like could a guy like Josiah Stewart be a local visit? It could be defined as a local visit. Maxwell Harrison could be defined as a local visit. The wide receiver from Arkansas could be a local visit as well. But at this point in time, like when you see the top 30 visits and you're like, okay, what do we get out of this? The last couple drafts, when the Lions have hosted a top 30 prospect to a visit, they've drafted a couple of them. And I haven't gone back and seen the players that they hosted on top 30 draft pick visits. I think I went back and they drafted like 8. All right, 7 or 8. I think I might have got it wrong on the 7, but I think it might have been 8, but I'm not entirely sure because I couldn't get a clear, concise reasoning from the first draft. So I was very interested about that. I'm kind of speculating on that portion, but it could be 7, it could be 8. But I couldn't get a good read of who they had top 30 draft visits for in the first year for some reason. I don't know if it was because of the whole COVID thing or not whatnot, but that was an interesting wormhole, and I was a little late recording this podcast, and let me tell you something. This has been one of the most unbelievable times of my life. Unbelievable. I mean, 2.5 months ago, Lions lose to the Washington Commanders. Washington Commanders beat the Detroit Lions, and yeah, I'm feeling all sort type of way. I'm feeling pissed off. I'm feeling depressed. Then I get a text from my fiance. She's pregnant. I'm like, what the hell is going on today? Like it was a couple days ago. Take a couple days later from the Commander game. What the hell's going on? The late old fiance is pregnant. Oh shoot. Started looking for houses. We're looking for houses for like 2 months, maybe a month. And then we found a house. Um, got married. Finally got the keys a couple days ago. So I in between running to the new house and all that jazz, recording the podcast. That way I can keep my audience, informed. But what just you know how there's times in life where you're just like, what the hell is going on? This is one of those times. But back to football. Um, you know, it's funny because this is one of the things that I want to really talk about going into our mock draft. The mock draft is gonna be great. We're gonna go through it. I'm gonna kind of like talk what about with the players that are available and all that jazz, and we'll talk about it. But look, I think it was hilarious. I don't know about you. You might think it's hilarious. You might not think it's hilarious. The Lions changed jersey numbers. Um, so um, you know, a guy like Ronnie Bell changed to 10. That's not a big news. Um, guys like Roy Lopez, he's 51. Maurice Norris is 26. Maurice Norris is 26. Huh? Rocky Sin is number 23. Grant Stewart is number 15. Kenny Eboa, 88. He's Hawkinson. He's Kenny Hawkinson. El Quadin Muhammad is number 96. And Broderick Martin takes number 99. Interesting. Because that's kind of like where he is in terms of being on the depth chart for defensive linemen. But I want to talk about this because we look at the top four, those four numbers that just glare out at you. If you're on the podcast, if you're on YouTube, you're seeing it right now. Jahmyr Gibbs is number 0 now. Jameson Williams is number 1 now. Terrion Arnold is number 6 now. And Ennis Rakestraw is number 9. He is Matthew Stafford's number. And then DJ Reed obviously is number 4. So that's cool. Tim Patrick is no longer 17. He is number 12 now, which was Hendon Hooker's old number, but it's not his number now. But I was just laughing. So I was reading some of the comments on the page when Jahmyr Gibbs changed his number to number 0. And look, he's entitled to do whatever he wants. You're entitled to buy his jersey. If he wants to change his jersey number, I mean, that's something that can happen. I do go back to the story of Michael Jordan when he wore the 45 when he came back from retirement. I do love that if you go on eBay right now and you look up a number 45 jersey, they go for a boatload. And if Jahmyr Gibbs is half the player that Michael Jordan was, obviously Michael Jordan's one of the greatest of all time, it'd be worth it because some of those jerseys can be worth a lot of money when the player changes numbers. Like Kobe Bryant's number 8 jersey. If you go try to search for a good looking Kobe jersey that's on eBay or something like that, that was like an older jersey. If it's in good condition, it's worth a lot. So it could be a collector's item. That number 26 for Jahmyr Gibbs could be a collector's item. That number 9 for Jameson Williams could be a collector's item. It's so funny how I was reading some of the comments and a lot of people were pissed off because they might have bought a jersey and all that jazz. Whenever you buy a jersey, there's 2 things that can happen that usually do happen, and you really can't make it up. You really can't make it up. You have to find a guy who is locked into a contract, like a Goff, like a Sewell, like a Amon-Ra St. Brown, like a Hutchinson will be. Those guys are locked into a contract. It's funny because I was going to get a Jahmyr Gibbs number 26 jersey. And I said, either Hutch or St. Brown. And I have a rule for this specific reason because if you're in your first 2 years, sometimes you get a jersey number you do not like. It's just the way it goes. Like you don't have any say so over it. When you're a rookie, sometimes you get forced into numbers and you have to wait for your number to come up, and that just usually happens. So I have that Hutch one sitting on right up there in the if you're on the YouTube, it's right behind me. I was gonna pick the St. Brown one, but I think Hutch is gonna be. Well, I love Hutch. I think he's a great player, but I love St. Brown too. That's the next jersey I'm gonna get. But my rule about buying jerseys is pretty simple. I don't buy rookie jerseys. I don't buy guys that are not like fully committed because there's no saying that they will be here in, in the next couple of years because anything can happen. Guys like Jared Goff, guys like Jahmyr Gibbs. I mean, not Jahmyr Gibbs, Hutchinson, St. Brown. Maybe Hutchinson isn't here in a couple of years, but I have a really strong suspicion that he could be here in 2 years. So when you buy a jersey, just there's two things you got to realize. One, the player might be traded because it does happen. Or two, the player changed his jersey number. And I do think it's funny that people are like, he can't change his jersey number. I just bought that damn jersey. Well, he did because he hated the jersey. And even Jameer Gibbs said on Instagram Live that he hated the number 26. And if he hates the number 26, I mean, it is what it is. Kind of was on borrowed time, anyways. I mean, if you think about it, because Jameer Gibbs is becoming a household name. He had changed his jersey number. He probably wants to be identified by the number that he wants to be. And then number 0 is pretty freaking cool for a running back. I'm not gonna lie. But that was the funny part. The jersey thing was hilarious. I thought it was absolutely hilarious, and I think that a lot of people need to follow new laws and new rules about buying jerseys because it's very simple. Like if you want to waste your money, go ahead, waste your money. But for me, watching some of this, hockey, basketball is the worst one. Like I remember a couple years ago, I bought a Toronto Raptors Kawhi Leonard jersey. He was traded like the next summer. The next summer, it was insane. And I like jerseys. I like collecting jerseys. But what I've realized over my 30 years on this earth is I have a lot of jerseys on my wall, not on my wall, in my closet that make no effing sense. I have an Eagles jersey from Terrell Owens that makes no effing sense. I have a Randy Moss Oakland Raiders jersey, which makes no sense. I have a Chris Chelios Chicago Blackhawks jersey, which makes no sense. Which makes sense because he was drafted by them. But you go back through this whole jersey thing, and you're like Dante Culpepper. I got a jersey from him with the Dolphins, which is just I don't know how I got it. Um, I'm pretty sure I didn't pay full price. It's probably when Champs is offering those whole you could buy a jersey for $25 type of thing because it's not real good material, but it's in perfect shape. It still doesn't fit me, so it is what it is. But ever since I learned the whole theory of I need to buy jerseys that will actually make sense in the long run, that's when we got to this point. So it is what it is. All right, let's move on because I want to talk about this because this is the most important part about this podcast. We are in Brad Holmes season. And when you talk about Brad Holmes, you talk about the drafts that he's had with the Detroit Lions, with in the 4 years that he's been here. If you're on the podcast, I'm going to read this out for you. But if you are on the YouTube, you probably just saw it and you probably want to look at it again. But here it is. In the first draft, Brad Holmes drafted Sewell, Enrique, McNeil, Melifonwu, St. Brown, Barnes, and Jefferson. So right off the hop, those are 6 good players. 6 good players. There's 2 elite players. I would venture a guess that maybe McNeil could be the 3rd elite player, but every player on there got a second contract in terms of going to, Melifonwu was with the Dolphins now, and Derek Barnes got a second contract with the Detroit Lions, and so did Sewell, and so did St. Brown. In year 2, Hutchinson, Jameson Williams, Pascal, Kirby Joseph, James Mitchell, Rodriguez, James Houston, Chase Lucas. You look at that 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 good picks, 5 really good picks. I think I could include Malcolm Rodriguez into that quotient. In the third draft, I mean, the Lions drafted Jameer Gibbs, Jack Campbell, Sam Laporta, Brian Branch, Hendon Hooker, Broderick Martin, Sorsdahl, and Green. I would say 4 of those are really damn good picks, and any general manager would love to get 4 right in a draft. Then we looked at last year, obviously Terrion Arnold, Ennis Rakestraw, Giovanni Manu, Sion Vaki, Makai Wingo, and Christian Mahogany. The thing about this is there's so much that needs to be left to be determined. I'm not going to make some bold opinion about Terrion Arnold or Ennis Rakestraw. They're going in their 2nd year. There's no point in making a bold prediction that doesn't carry much weight. I think Terrion will be fine. I think Terrion, Ennis, and Manu, Wingo, and Mahogany could be really good players. So you can't even grade that part. But this is Brad Holmes' season. Brad Holmes has done a damn good job at drafting the best players possible for the Detroit Lions. You saw in that first draft, he got Sewell, he got St. Brown, he got McNeil, he got Derek Barnes. You've seen in the second year, he got Hutchinson, he got James Williams, he got Kirby Joseph. Like, Brad Holmes has routinely brought home the bacon. Like, there's a lot of general managers in this league that don't do nothing. There's some general managers that can't get one right, let alone three, let alone four, let alone five guys that they drafted that are really good players. I mean, if you look at Brad Holmes and the way that he's drafted in the last couple of years, I mean, you started his first year. Six of those players got second contracts in the NFL. Somewhere in the NFL, they got a second contract, which is great. And then you look in the second year, Hutchinson, Williams, Kirby, Rodrigo. I would say Pascal's a good depth player. That's four guys. Jameer Gibbs, Jack Campbell, Sam Laporta, Brian Branch. Great. That's phenomenal. 4 picks, nailed them all. This last year, it remains to be determined, but Brett Holmes has shown that he's drafted some really good players. They've turned out really well. They've developed really well. That's a credit to Dan Campbell. That's a credit to the coaching staff. Because when you get to this time of year, and we're going to get into it when we get to the mock draft, but when you get to this time of year, it literally comes down to 2 things. And, all the time you hear people say, oh, development. It's a lot about drafting the right player. Like, there's certain players that aren't meant to be Detroit Lions. There's certain players that are not meant to be Green Bay Packers. Certain players that are not meant to be Pittsburgh Steelers, and that's fine. That's how their teams have operated, especially the Steelers and the Packers. Like, they operate with a set standard. The Ravens are another team that operate with a set standard. And you watch those teams and you watch what the Lions are doing and developing the talent. Like Derek Barnes, they took full advantage of where he went to school. He went to school at Purdue. If he would have went to Ohio State, he probably would have been a third-round draft pick. But because he went to Purdue, they saw underlying chance. Take him. Now, there are guys that they've drafted that are going to be very, very interesting to watch, especially in the last 2 years. Broderick Martin's probably on borrowed time. Hendon Hooker is probably on borrowed time. He's going to be compete with Kyle Allen for the backup spot. Colby Sorsdahl is on borrowed time. It's just guys like that. There's a limited opportunity for them to go, and this is going to be a critical time for those guys in the third draft. They're going to be in their second year. Their third year. So it's time to poop or get out the potty, because we saw a really good improvement from Derek Barnes from his first to his second to his third year in the league. And before he got hurt last year, he was looking very, very good. And it's going to be very interesting to see what Derek Barnes could do here. A lot of people say that they overpaid for Derek Barnes. I would disagree with that, especially what Derek Barnes was doing in the first part of the year. But it's an interesting thing from the Detroit Lions perspective. All right, so next we will talk about we will go to the mock draft, and I'll be very clear and honest with you. If you're on the YouTube, you will see it. You could go to the YouTube. We'll put the link in the podcast description info on Spotify and Apple. But we will see you in a minute as we talk Detroit Lions football and the Detroit Lions draft special part 1 as we do the mock draft here 1.0. All right, welcome back. We're going to do the mock draft. I'm on the Pro Football Focus website. I think they have the best mock draft simulator in the game, and we're going to talk about it. We're going to kind of go through it. It's going to be great to literally go through it and be like, yes, this is going to be great. We are going to go through it. So I'm going to start it up. I'm going to put that on the screen. For you guys that are listening through Apple or Spotify, I'll put the link in the description so you guys could follow along. But this is the Detroit Lions News Mock Draft 1.0. So we're going to start. We're going to play with some of the settings. Now, the settings here, let's go middle. Let's go right about middle for the ground. Let's go positional value a little bit up there. Let's go randomness a little bit, less random. Let's go for a real draft here. We're going to select the Detroit Lions, obviously. We're going to do 7 rounds. And as we go, I'm going to show you the players that we are either drafting or we're not drafting. So here's how it's going to go. So I'll put this on the full screen when we get to the point, but let's look at what we got here. So you can see obviously that the Tennessee Titans are drafting at number 1 overall. It'll be interesting to see what happens here, but let's see what we do. Let's get to our pick at pick 26, 28, and obviously you see we have a good couple picks, but we only have 3 picks in the top 100, so this is going to be an interesting draft for the Detroit Lions. So let's go on and hit the start button. All right. So we get this draft is stupid. Because Cam Ward somehow is up to us, which makes no sense. Here's how it shook out here on the board. Mason Graham went number 1. McMillan went number 2. This doesn't make any sense. The whole thing was whatever. I don't know what happened to this board, but we're gonna restart because this is too stupid. To be honest, so we gotta restart this. This is probably one of the dumbest drafts I've ever seen in my entire life. I mean, it could happen. It could happen. For the people that are on the podcast, you're gonna hear this happen, and the people that are on YouTube, they're not gonna see this happen. So this for you, this is a win because I'm telling you right now, one of the dumbest drafts I've ever seen in my entire life. I'll post a whole podcast on YouTube because that's what I'm gonna do. But what a dumb draft it was. And if you saw that on YouTube and on the full podcast, stupid ass draft, made no damn sense at all. We're gonna play with the settings a little bit more. I think we're gonna keep it to. We're not gonna go randomness. Draft for needs. Let's see what it does. Because I'll tell you what. Let's go less of the PFF board because the PFF board had Cam Ward at number 20, and that really didn't do nothing for me. So let's go to enter the draft. This is more public, not the PFF, way. So we'll start the draft here. So for you people on the YouTube, you're gonna see this and you're gonna go, "Wow, this is the draft." Because I'm gonna be honest with you, the last one that you saw, it wasn't good at all. Was not good at all, and it is what it is. So here we go. Let's go and let's draft here. We're gonna draft. Let's hit the start draft button and let's see where we go. Now this is a lot better for us because the last draft, if you saw it on the main podcast, which if you're on YouTube, you can go there and you can check it out. But it was totally just dumb. I mean, we had Cam Ward at pick 28, which made no damn sense. But let's look at this draft so far. Cam Ward goes number 1 to the Tennessee Titans, which is a good pick. Travis Hunter number 2 to the Browns. Abdul Carter went to 3 to the Giants. 4 Ashton Genty. 5 Mason Graham. That's a good pick. John A. Barron from Texas. The cornerback went to the Raiders. Will Campbell went to the Jets. Good pick for Aaron Glenn. McMillan, who went 2nd overall in that first draft. If you were on the YouTube or the podcast, you heard about that. He went 2nd to the Browns in the first draft, but we had to redo it because somehow that draft was all messed up. So McMillan went 8 to the Panthers, so Bryce Young will be his quarterback. The Missouri tackle Membu, he is going to be the guy that they draft for the Saints. He is a huge tackle. Tyler Warren. This is an interesting one for the Chicago Bears. He goes to the Chicago Bears. Very interesting pick right there for all intents and purposes because Tyler Warren is a huge weapon. He will be a very good player in the NFL. Jihad Campbell goes to the 49ers at 11. Matthew Golden, the wide receiver from Texas, goes to the Dallas Cowboys, and he stays in Texas. Pick 13 is the Dolphins. They pick Will Johnson. Mike Green goes to the Colts. Donovan Ezeraku from Boston College, edge rusher who Mel Kiper mocked to Detroit. He goes pick 15 to the Falcons. Kenneth Grant to the Cardinals. Shamar Stewart at 17 to the Bengals. Michael Williams at 18 to the Seahawks. Malachi Starks at 19 to the Buccaneers. Emeka Ibuka goes to Bo Nix and the Denver Broncos. Shador Sanders goes to the Pittsburgh Steelers at 21. I don't think that's going to happen, but we'll see. Jalen Walker goes to 22. He is going to be the pick for the Chargers. Josh Simmons, the tackle, goes to Green Bay. Walter Nolan, the defensive lineman, goes to Minnesota at pick 24. Kelvin Banks goes to the Houston Texans, who traded Laramie Tunzel. They get Kelvin Banks from Texas. Colston Loveland, the Rams pick him up. They needed a tight end, supposedly, and they picked him. James Pierce goes to the Baltimore Ravens. And if there's one player that really freaks me out going to the Baltimore Ravens, it's James Pierce, because that seems like a match made in heaven. Now, we're seeing who is available for the Detroit Lions. Obviously, you see Luther Bolden is available. Omarion Hampton's available. The cornerback Siobhan Revel is available. He's a pretty good player. Gray Zabel is available. Derek Harmon, Trey Amos, Nick Scorton, Xavier Watts, Darius Alexander, who I called Darius Robinson earlier in the podcast. Oops. TJ Sanders. And Tyleek Williams is also available, and so is Landon Jackson. Now, if we go through it, obviously, you look at Derek Harmon. If you're on the YouTube, you're seeing this, but his run defense grade was 80.5. His pass rush grade was 86.3. I like his pass rush win rate, which was 17.6. That's a pretty good barometer. And his run stop rate was 7.1, which is pretty damn good. And he played pretty good against Ohio State, played pretty good against Michigan, played pretty good against Maryland. He had his two best games against Ohio State, which is a higher competition. So he played good in the big games, and those were two of his best games. I mean, Ohio State and Ohio State twice that he played. He played him in the Big Ten championship game, so he had a pretty good year. The analysis for him, he has shades of Christian Barmore. Harmon has just 1 year of notable production, but that season showcased a player of high football IQ, consistent competitiveness, and NFL level quickness. He could be a 3 technique defensive lineman for an even front. And you can see that there's trends and all that jazz. They keep saying that he has 1 year of production, and that's because Michigan State sucked, but he played at Michigan State and he was pretty good. I watched him a lot. Gray Zabel, as you can see, his pass rush grade was 93.1, which is fantastic. He had a great game against the Colorado Buffaloes and Deion Sanders. His run block grade was really, really good. Zone grade was really, really good. Gap grade was really good. He's only allowed 4 sacks through 3 years. So that's a pretty good barometer to what he is. And when you look at the analysis from it, Zabel is a 5-position lineman who brings everything but elite arm length to the position. He's an easy projection to start at center or guard for primarily a zone blocking team, but he is a well-rounded enough to be a run game versatile. They shades of Graham Barton. So that is an interesting one for us. Let's look at Nick Scorton. This is another guy who a lot of Lions fans are interested in. He's 13% of people have mocked to the Detroit Lions. This is a guy who plays in a 3-4. But I think here for the Detroit Lions, I think it makes the most sense to draft Derek Harmon. I don't know about you, but I look at this list, and I potentially can get an edge rusher in round 2. Let's see who the edge rushers would be available in round 2. Princely, okay, there's some guys that could be available. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to draft Derek Harmon. And the reason I'm going to draft Derek Harmon is because I think it's so important that you draft defensive tackles and you draft good defensive tackles. And we know DJ Reader potentially could be a guy who could be, you know, uh, he's an older guy, so he could retire, next year. He's in the last year of his contract. So that would be an interesting draft pick right there. And I always think that I'm gonna be completely honest with you. To be honest, I think the most important part here, uh, from my status is I think a guy like Derek Harmon fits this team way better. And I tell people all this all the time. Like everyone looks at the edge rushers and they're like edge rusher, edge rusher, edge rusher, edge rusher, edge rusher, edge rusher, edge rusher. When you lost against Commanders, where did most of that pressure come from? The middle. And when you have good interior pressure up the middle, what's stopping you? Now, when you get Lee McNeil back and you have DJ Reader, McNeil, and Derek Harmon and Levi Onwuzurike, that's a match made in heaven for 4 defensive tackles. And then you add in a guy like Mekhi Wingo. And if Roderick Martin doesn't pan out, it does not matter because you drafted his replacement and he's put on notice. So I think a guy like there's some good edge rushers that'll be available in the second round. This is a very deep draft in the offensive line, the defensive line routes, and the cornerback routes. So I'm going to go Derek Harmon here. And that's why I'm going to go with Derek Harmon. So we will go Derek Harmon. So let me put this back up. We're going to go Derek Harmon, and we're going to see where we land in the next pick. So we get to this pick. And this is an interesting pick right here because this is your 60th pick. You have picks remaining 102, 130, 196, 228, 244. Let's look at the edge rushers that are available. Let's look at the inside interior offensive linemen, and let's look at the defense. Let's look at the edge rushers that are available. So Kyle Kennard is there. Josiah Stewart is there, who has been put on visits with the Detroit Lions. Jordan Birch is there. Quandarius Robinson is there. There was a lot of guys that I thought could potentially be there, like a Jack Sawyer, like a Jared Ivey. They were drafted. JT Tuilabalu was drafted there, and Princely. Princely was a guy I was looking at too. But if you're gonna make me pick, because I look at this and I looked at the edge rushers, and I mean those were the first 3 I seen, and I go, okay, whatever the case may be, the case may be. So what I'm gonna do here is I'm gonna look at, so you look at this, there's Tate Rutledge as a guard. But there's not many, you could probably get a guard later on. I think there's some pretty good guards later on. So let's look at the players one for one and let's see who we like better. So here is Kyle Kennard. When you look at him, he's 6'5", 254. It says Kennard shows a good understanding of how to win as a pass rusher in varying situations in both odd and even fronts. He is lean and strong, which is a plus for arm length, but a negative when holding up against his run. His handwork and footwork show a great baseline to build a successful pass rush profile in the league as a day 2 selection. So that's what they say about him. Bottom line, Kennard shows a good understanding of how to win. We heard that. So let's look at his stats. So his run stop rate, he's not good as a run guy. He had 10 sacks last year, 7 the year before. He had 2 in 2022. 23 hurries this year. That's pretty good. 6 hits on the quarterback. But he's not a good run stop guy. 3.8%. That's not that great as a run stop guy. So I'm going to stay clear of Kyle Kennard just for that reason, because I know I see that he is versatile, but I also see that he's not a guy that really takes on a run. Josiah Stewart. This is a guy that really interests me. He has played good against some good tackles, like in the Texas game, he has 75.9 Pro Football Focus grade. He's played against some pretty good tackles in the Big Ten and outside the Big Ten. You can see his run stop rate is 8.3, which is really good. Pass rush win rate, which I always look at, is high off the charts, 27.7. And when you look at this, it goes, Stewart is a juiced up pass rusher with less than ideal measurables because he's 6'1", 245. His effort and leverage give him a chance to win every rep, but he lacks pass rush nuance to win more than those attributes and a good first step. His best spot might be as an off the ball Sam linebacker, where he could be used as a blitzer more than a straight edge rusher. Think Uchenna Nuwasu, which is interesting because obviously we know the Detroit Lions are they're 4-3 defense that we think now. Could they be a potential 3-4 defense? And if they do go to the 3-4 defense, Josiah Stewart would make a ton of sense. So let's look at Jordan Birch. Again, 15.7 pass rush win rate, really good. Run stop rate is not good, and that's not my that I don't like that at all. Birch is a high potential player with athletic physical gifts that you cannot teach. He's 6'6", 295, so he kind of profiles more. He can play in both odd and end fronts, but projects best as a 4-3 defensive end. If he continues to master more pass rush moves and hand usage, he could be a starter and a contributing player. So he is a guy who could be potentially a guy who you could be like, okay, he could be that guy. Let's look at this guy, Elijah Roberts from SMU. Roberts is 6'4", 295. Roberts is a strong, well-built defensive lineman who has a lot of experience on defensive alignments. He plays 3-4. He has but his size and versatility could play well as a 3-4 defensive end who can move along gaps. So let's go back to his stats. I understand he comes from the American Conference, but he had a great game against Penn State right there. And he had a great game in the conference championship against the Clemson Tigers. I am tempted to go with this guy because based on you don't know who is going to be potentially, you don't know who could potentially what defense you're going to run. Are you going to run a 3-4? If you run a 3-4, I like Josiah Stewart. If you're not running a 3-4 or you're running a hybrid, I like Elijah Roberts for that reason alone. So that we're going to go Elijah Roberts here. So we get to pick 102. There is a lot. The top players on the board are Kyle Williams, the wide receiver from Washington State, Devin Neal, the halfback from Kansas. We got Andrew Mukuba from Texas, Dorian Strong, Delaney Walker, Cameron Rocker, Jaden Blue, Jeffrey Bassa, the Oregon linebacker, who I do like, Isaiah Bond. Here's a guy that the Lions had as a visit. It could have been a visit, but he is a 6'4", 217 kid. His stats are are really well done. I don't know why Pro Football Focus doesn't really profile his stats, but he had 532 yards last year. 3 TDs. Looks like a pretty good player. 60% of them have the goals. There's not much on Isaac. That's a guy who obviously the Lions had interest in. Jonas Sanker, another guy who the Detroit Lions had on their top 30 visits. This is a guy who has a lot, 15 coverage stops. Forced incompletion rate was 15.4. Let's look at what they say about him. They don't say much about him, so you just gotta PFF guys get it together. Come on, boys. So what we're gonna do at 102 is gonna be interesting. So let's see what kind of guards they got available here. Because we're picking at 102, and there's guys like Seth McLaughlin, Tyler Cooper, Willie Lampkin, and Dylan Fitzgerald, Miles Frazier. All right, I'm not really gonna go down this wormhole and try to pick a guy who I don't believe is going to be a good player. So let's go back to all of them. And let's look at it like this. Andrew Makuba, I know the Lions have two good safeties, but they lost Ifeatu Melifonwu. I like this kid a lot, but I think it's going to be very, very interesting what they do. Now, the next pick for the Detroit Lions is at 130. And we're going to see where Sanker would be in the range for us. Is he going to be there at 130? Potentially not. So let's try to do this in real time. Dorian Strong. Do they need another corner? No. DLN Walker. Again, I love the pass rush win rate. The run stop rate's pretty good. He had 4 sacks last year, 8 sacks the year before, 3 sacks the year before. 18, 39, and 20. He's a disruptive guy in that thing. Walker's measurables at 6'6", 345. Walker's measurables will jump out immediately, but his play on the field doesn't match the dominant suggestion on paper. He's a versatile defense lineman due to his height and weight, but he needs more precision in pass rush to hold more ground. This is a Detroit Michigan kid too, so this would be an interesting pick as well. But God, this is such an interesting pick, guys. This is something I'm not sure who I would go with. I'm not really sure. There's a lot of guys on the board. Like Bassa is a guy I like. Isaiah, if we needed a wide receiver, I'd go with Isaiah Bond or anybody. But we got an edge rusher. So earlier in the draft, we got an edge rusher in Elijah Roberts. We got a defensive lineman in Mr. Derek Harmon. I'm gonna double dip. With interior defensive linemen, and I'm gonna put. I don't know. Maybe you know what? I'm just gonna go with it. I'm gonna go DLN Walker, the defensive lineman from Kentucky. I'm gonna go with him here. Let's see what Cameron Rocker. I forget. Cameron Rocker. Good. This could be an interesting pick as well. Rocker is a smart, sound, outside linebacker type of edge rusher who uses quick hands and he is a dependable player who would be well out as a depth chart as a pass rush specialist in a 3-4 alignment. So again, what are the Lions going to run? Are they going to run a 3-4? Are they going to run a 4-3? Are they going to run a 4-3 hybrid, which was like a 3-4, 4-3 mix? That's the question. So my pick is depending on, do you go to DLN Walker? I love his measurables at 6'6", 345. He's 105 on the PFF big board rank. So he's right in the range of where you are drafting at 102. A guy like Cameron Rocker, Kyman Rocker, he's at 106. Again, he's a 23-year-old. He's gonna be a outside a linebacker type guy. And then I don't know. This is a tough pick. Ashton Gillot, he's a pass rush run rate of 20.9%. This is another edge rusher. He's from Louisville. 6'3", 275. He can play. He's an impressive run defender. He can slide play 3, defense tackle play, pass rush run rate. When his pass rush win percentage and pressure numbers are high, but he doesn't turn those into sacks at a high rate. And you look at some of the guys that are on the board. Then you look at Jonas Sanker, who is from Virginia, and he's had some really good. He's played in the slot. He's played in the box. He's played deep. So here's what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna get a chess piece. I'm gonna hear it in the third round or second round. We're in the second round. Where are we? Are we in the third round? Yeah, third round, pick 38. So, because I thought for some reason we were in the second round for some reason because but I scrolled up. Anyways, so here's what I'm gonna do. I know people are on the podcast are like, "Come on, dude, pick the freaking pick." So, or if you're on YouTube, you're gonna say that. Here's what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna give Mr. Calvin Shepard a chess piece. I was gonna go DLN Walker. Hey, still white. I want to see the safeties that are in this draft that I could maybe get a safety late in the draft. Uh, no, no. All right. Let's see. For you people on the podcast, I'm looking at this and I'm going, okay, where could we go? Simeon Barrow is another guy. Okay, so that's a potential guy you can get the defensive lineman right there. All right. So here's what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna do what I said I was gonna do. I'm gonna give Calvin Shepard a chess piece. This is the guy who the Detroit Lions have held on a top 30 visit to Detroit, and that's Jonas Sanker. I don't know if I'm saying his name right, but I'm gonna draft him. First of all, I watched a couple of the games. He played pretty well. He played at Virginia, which no one watches their football games. They're absolute disaster as a football team. So I'm going to take Jonas Sanker here because I don't know what trades do I got. There's a lot of teams I want to trade, but I'm not trading out of this pick. I feel like it's too valuable right now. I'm going to take Sanker. Let's see where we go at pick 130. So we get to pick 130. Obviously, we have picked some interesting players here. Derek Harmon, round 1, pick 28. Elijah Roberts at round 2, pick 60. We picked Jonas Sanker, 3rd round, 102. So here's what we're going to do. We look at all the players that have been drafted ahead of us. Jaden Blue went to the Broncos. Quindarius Robinson, who the Lions had on a top 30 visit, went to the Falcons in the 4th round at pick 118. Jeffrey Bassa to the Panthers. Rocker went to the Bills. Walker went to the Jaguars. So he's gone. So let's see what edge rushers that are available. Let's see what defensive linemen are available. Let's see what's interior linemen, and let's see what highest guy on the board is. Savion Jones. So if we want to go wide receiver, I know that they held him on a visit, so maybe we can go there. Just based on their top 30 or whatever. But I don't like his statistics. I watched. There's not he didn't really get that many receptions. I mean, Arkansas is not a great team either, so it is what it is. But let's see what we could do here. All right. But he is the highest guy on the board right now. So he is the highest guy on the board. Antoine Powell Ryland is the highest edge rusher on the board. So let's cancel this out and let's see where we are at. All right. So this is a guy. There's a lot of this is what I love when you get to this point in the draft, because what happens when you get to this point in the draft here is you don't know which way to go. You know what I'm saying? Like you really don't know which way to go. Like, do I go with a guy who has upside? Do I go with a guy that I know? Do I go with a guy like I know a lot of these guys, but I don't know if they're going to be really good pro players. You obviously are not going to go by position, because if you go by position, you're going to get a crappy player. So that is what it is. So we're looking at all these guys. Jack Kaiser is a guy who interests me. You look at his statistics; he's a really good player. Not a good, not a good. They don't have anything on him on his statistics, on his scouting profile. So Jack Kaiser's a guy I like. This is gonna be an interesting pick here in the 4th round at pick 28. God. So, this is an interesting one. This is a very, very interesting one. Because there's a lot of players that are available that I like, but they're not positions of need that the Detroit Lions need. I know Pro Football Focus thinks they need a wide receiver, which potentially could be the case. When I look at the wide receivers here, Ty Felton, kid from Maryland, 6'2", 186. He's not someone I'm really happy with. Contested catch rate is 38%. Isaac Tasila was 71.4%, so I do like that. But he didn't drop any passes. I don't really think they have a really good. I really don't think they have a good scouting report on this kid. To be honest, I really just you got to work him out because you got to see what he is. But if we're going off what I know, which who knows? Nick Nash is the guy that I do like. I think he's a very talented player as a wide receiver. But this is an interesting part of the draft. These next 4 picks are going to be tough, and no one's going to nail them. Like no one's going to be exactly right. Barrett Carter, I don't like that coverage grade. Ugh, don't like that effort missed tackle rate. Don't like that. Zay Alexander. Do we go with a cornerback? Here's what I'm gonna do. I think the cornerback draft in this draft is deep, and I like Zay Alexander a lot. I watched him at LSU. I think he could be a damn good player. He's a good player in the run. He's a good player in the coverage. His completion percentage is 43.5%. This is a guy I was actually leaning towards, and I'm going to draft him there. All right. We're going to get to the Lions right now. Pick 196. Ahead of us, Jack Nelson, the tackle from Wisconsin, went to the Rams. A lot of players. Emory Jones went to the Pittsburgh Steelers. They need a tackle, so that's good for them. Wow, there's a lot of guys available now. Here we go. There is a ton of dudes here. All right. Let's see what we got available. Let's see what interior offensive linemen are available here at pick 196. So Dylan Fairchild is the guy who is available. He's allowed 1 sack in 3 years. So here's what I'm gonna do. I kind of figured he would be here. I figured Miles Frazier would be here. I figured Jake Majors would be here. That 4th round pick that we were just picking, that was a ridiculous pick. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to draft Dylan Fairchild. I think he's a good player for this position. I think he's a good player at this spot. So we're going to go with him. All right. So we're at pick 228, round 7, pick 12. So when you get to this point in the draft, this is like nailing winning numbers on a lottery ticket. You know, if you can get a useful player, cool. If you can't get a useful player, I mean, it's a 7th round pick. There's a reason they're 7th round picks, but you would like to get one of those guys who is an undrafted free agent that you thought was going to be really good. So the picks that we had, we drafted Jonas Sanker, we drafted Elijah Roberts, we drafted Derek Harmon, we drafted Zay Alexander from LSU, the cornerback, and we drafted Dylan Fairchild. So we have a full competent of what we could do. We can go wide receiver. We can go linebacker. Let's look at the wide receivers. Let's look at the linebackers, and let's see where we're at. So there's a lot of guys available. Will Shepard is an interesting one. He's from Colorado, 6'3", 205. There's Kyron Lacey, another guy. His contested catch rate is gross. Again, I think contested catch rate is huge. So I pick on Konata Mumfield, and he is a 6'1", 185. He's not a bigger guy. He doesn't have to be. Ron St. Brown isn't a big guy. Andrew Armstrong, this is a kid who is from I think he's from Hudsonville, if I'm correct. Andrew, let me look it up real quick. Andrew Armstrong. Andrew Armstrong. No, he's not. He's from Dallas, Texas. He's 6'4", 203. I love his contested catch rate. I love contested catch rate. And I tell you why. The reason I love contested catch rate for 2 reasons is I think that it means that you fight for the ball. It means that you fight for a chance to get the ball. and you make the catch. So right off the hop, I like these two wide receivers right here. I think that these are guys that I would really go after, and they're they should have been drafted way higher based on their Pro Football Focus rank, and their after draft average draft position through the Pro Football Focus draft simulator is 215. So here's what I'm gonna do. Konata Mumfield, come on down to the Detroit Lions. I think he's a really good player. So I'll take him for that. Because his contested catch rate was sick. Okay, let's see what we got here. Now let's see the defensive lineman. Let's see the edge rushers. You're gonna take a stab at it, right? You're gonna take a stab at it. So we have a lot of guys to pick from here at 244. All of them are under the pick. So it is interesting to see what we can do here. No, we don't want Graham Mertz. I'm trying to see if there's anyone available that could potentially be a guy that Lions be interested in, but I really can't find a guy. Kyron Lacy, like I said, his contested catch rate is not good enough for my liking, so it is what it is. Seth Hannigan, nope. Edge rusher Johnny Walker, you could take a stab at that. No. All right, so this last pick of the draft, it's a total stab at the wind. And when you get to this point, you're going to take the best of pit player available on the board. And you just took a wide receiver, but you're going to take another one. And either one of these guys, Elijah Badger, but you just took a guy who is 6'1". So we're going to take Andrew Armstrong from Arkansas. And it's not because he's the best player on the board. I mean, I know who Andrew Armstrong is. I know who Raheem Sanders is. I know all these guys are. But when you get to this point in the draft, it's very difficult to say this player is going to be better than this player. This player is not going to be better than this player, and that's what you get. That's when you get yourself in a little bit of trouble where you're saying, "All right, we're going to go this guy, but we're not going to go this guy. We're going to go this guy, but we're not going to go this guy." It's just it's a really difficult situation to put yourself in. So we're going to go Andrew Armstrong. We're going to draft him. We're going to end this mock draft, and this is what we got as a grade. Let's see what we got as a grade. So they said we should have drafted Luther Bolden. I don't know about that. We got a B- as a draft grade, which is really good, in my opinion. So they didn't like the pick of Elijah Roberts. They did not like the pick of Jonas Sanker. They did not like the pick of Zaya Alexander. They loved the later round picks, and it is what it is. So this is the Detroit Lions draft. This is mock draft 1.0. Obviously, when you look at this, it just goes to show you that this is a total crapshoot, because when you put yourself in the simulation, there's things that happen that are beyond your control. So you're kind of like, okay, we could do this, we could not do this. Very interesting situation. But this is the Lions mock draft, and out of the guys that we picked, I'm very confident in a guy like Sanker because the Lions have had him on a top 30 visit, which they do like to draft those guys. Elijah Roberts is a guy who I think is a guy who can play in a 3-4 or 4-3. So because we don't know what defense the Detroit Lions are going to run, I do like him there. Derek Harmon, I love the defensive tackle. Look, we overdrafted on Elijah Roberts in terms of PFF's big board. We overdrafted on the third round pick. We overdrafted 12 picks over the cornerback, Zaya Alexander. But we got a really good pick for Dylan Fairchild compared to that's why the PFF big board and the grade, that's why it's leaning towards a B-, because if you would have hit in one of those 2, 3, 4 picks, which could be great picks, I think they will be good picks. I think Sanker is going to be a damn good player, but look, PFF doesn't like him. They don't even have a scouting report on him. I mean, it was insane. So they said Luther Bolden is a better need than Derek Harmon, I have a hard time believing that. Hard time believing that. So that is the Detroit Lions mock draft 2.0. I mean 1.0. And yeah, this was a good start to the mock draft season. And look, we're gonna have a lot of time to go over it, but I um I think it was very, very interesting to see what happened in this draft, in terms of the mock draft and all that jazz. So this is going to be an interesting draft process. Obviously, you heard us if you're on the podcast and you were hearing me go through it. Like it was very, very difficult to go through it and do the draft and do the podcast, but we got it done. So round one, the Detroit Lions selected Derek Harmon. They selected edge rusher from SMU Elijah Roberts in round two. Jonas Sanker in round three at 102. Zaya Alexander at round four, pick 130. Dylan Fairchild, pick six, 196. Round seven, 228. Konata Mumfield from really good pick in my opinion, because you get down to that seventh round, and you're just throwing darts at the dartboard, and you're trying to get the best available player. Basically, what it comes down to. And Andrew Armstrong at picks 244 in the seventh round. All right, we're gonna wrap up the podcast in a minute, and then we'll give it to you guys on the other side of the break. So stay tuned as we wrap up the podcast and we talk more Detroit Lions football here on the Detroit Lions News Podcast. All right, let's wrap up the podcast, Detroit Lions News Podcast. I'm your host, Joe Chapp. We're talking about the Detroit Lions, and look, this draft that we did, this mock draft, it's just a simulation. When you get to this time of the year, so many people have opinions about how the draft is going to go. And when you get yourself in a simulation of how the draft actually goes, it's very difficult at the time because one, you got to know the players. If you don't know the players, you don't know what you're doing. And I know the players, but man, there were some that I was thrown off by because there was a guy that you expected to be there who wasn't there. There was a guy who you not expected to be there that was there. It was all interesting. So, you know, drafting Derek Harmon, I think that's huge. You get a good edge rusher in Elijah Roberts. I think he's very underrated because he went to SMU. If he went to a big Power Five school like Oregon, like Alabama, do you think he's a second round pick? I don't. I mean, I watched him at SMU. He's a pretty damn good player, and he's pretty damn good. Same with Sanker. When you're a team like Detroit, you get to a portion of your drafting where you got to draft under evaluated players, and it's very hard to do in this day and age in the NFL, because what happens is a lot of teams, they think that they're evaluating these players. They're going to Georgia, they're going to Alabama, they're going to Michigan, they're going to Ohio State, they're going to Oregon. Sometimes the underlooked guys are the guys at SMU, Purdue, Virginia. Those guys, Pittsburgh, Arkansas. Like, these are guys who could potentially be big name players, but because of the school that they went to with the NIL landscape, it's kind of opened up it's going to be very, very interesting to see what happens moving forward. Because of NIL, what does it mean for these guys that are getting drafted? Because I'm going to tell you this right now. The cream will rise to the top, obviously, but when you get to the top, who's going to fall to the bottom and who's going to settle up at the end? And that's what happens at the NFL draft, where you get players that, they might not have worked out at Alabama. They might not have worked out. And I don't know these guys' transfer history, but they might not have worked out at a bigger place. They got the opportunity at a place like Alabama, Virginia, SMU, Pittsburgh, Arkansas, and they just made the most of it. So for the Lions, where they're drafting, they can draft on, you're obviously evaluating these players, but you're also evaluating what are they going to look like in my system. What is Brad Holmes looking at when he drafts these guys? And you know, there's a couple of these guys who did have. There was one guy who did have a top 30 visit to the Detroit Lions, and that was Sanker. But Derek Harmon fits the mold. He's a defensive lineman, and the Detroit Lions need a defensive lineman. They need a defensive tackle. I think defensive tackle in today's game is more important than the edge rusher because, especially with these running quarterbacks, if you can get pressure up the middle quick, it kind of makes players go haywire. Like, think about it like this: with all these scrambling quarterbacks nowadays, when you get a push up the middle, Jalen Hurts, he's got to roll this way, so defense can roll this way. And yes, he can make a sweet pass, or Lamar Jackson, or any of these guys. No one likes getting pressure up the middle. No quarterback likes getting pressure up the middle. So defensive tackle is very, very important. And with Ali McNeil not coming back to November, that's why I put an importance on Derek Harmon being the pick at 28. Because look, we could have drafted Walker, but I feel like you got to go with the proven talent and the best player on your board. And that guy was the best player on my board was Derek Harmon. And there were some players that were available in that first round. Like if we go look at the first round, uh, in that draft, James Pierce went ahead of Detroit. But you look at Gray Zabel was the guy who went to the Chiefs. That's a good pick for them. Tyler Booker, that could have been a guy we could have picked. The Detroit Lions could have picked. But I look at there was a lot of guys that went off the board that I liked, like Shamar Stewart. I had another guy that had a top 30 visit to the Detroit Lions. Walter Nolan, I liked. And they all went off the board. And when that happens, you're kind of forced to make a decision on a couple players. And that's what we did today here. And thank you for watching. Thank you for listening as well. Um, I know people are listening, some people are watching. It's going to be great. I appreciate all the love and we're going to bring you another podcast like this next week where we do a mock draft 2.0. And then in the lead up to the draft, we'll do a total draft preview. We'll maybe have Walter on or someone like that to go through it. But this has been a great podcast. It's 1 hour and 17-minute podcast. Great podcast. We did the mock draft. I'll post the mock draft on the page, but here it is. The Detroit Lions drafted for the last time. At pick 28, Derek Harmon. Pick 60, Elijah Roberts. Pick 102, Jonas Sanker from Virginia, the safety. Pick 130, Zay Alexander. Dylan Fairchild at 196. Konata Mumfield at pick 228. And pick 224, Andrew Armstrong. Now, I would have liked to pick some other guys late in the 7th round, but when you get to that position, best player available, let's go. Let's do it. Whatever. I didn't see many guys that were available that were really great. And wide receivers are pretty deep here. So it was a good draft. And we'll see you guys in the next podcast as we talk more Detroit Lions football here on the Detroit Lions News Podcast.